everybody, and welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander Cockins.
He is Captain Foley.
And today we're here to talk about Bussard collectors.
You know, those giant red things that just scream out into the night. They ain't the blue bits. They ain't the white bits. They ain't the blinky bits. They're the red bits. Or the blades.
We saw a really cool feature of them scooping up deuterium in the latest episode of Strange New Worlds. And we want to talk a little about that process and look at some other ones as well. Because, hey, why not? So
I thought it's a very Stuart topic as well, for some reason.
yeah, it was cool to see it actually do something with those vents and like...
Especially you had some coils, some coil action in Picard Season 3. Then you had some stripping the hull off Lower Deck Season 2, 1. And now you got some Bussard action, Stuart. You are just trifectoring, right?
Oh, yeah.
All you need is some impulse action. And then some RCS thrust action. See, we're going to get them all, Stuart. We're going to get them all. But speaking of them all, here is to give you some slight history Bussard visual lesson. Of course, you got, in order of timeline, the NX-01 top left, the TOS Connie, and we'll get into this later. This is specifically the Intermirror Darkly latest canon TOS Prime Connie version, TNG, and of course the Insurrection, First Contact, Nemesis, E variant. And it's funny, obviously, because it started with the blades of Connie, then it went to the two lights and the cloud of D, and then it moved to the cool, cloudy, moving...
Rolly, yeah.
Which then sort of kept going for NX, so it's kind of that doubling back on itself vibe of Bussard's. Anything come across here, do you?
Just that it always kind of had the glitter, like even the flashy lights of TOS were similar to the swirly patterns of the Sovereign. But yeah, I mean, the only one that's kind of the outlier is the Enterprise D with the two, you can see actually two bulbs glowing in there. Which we've seen cutaway versions of those nacelles, and you can see the two things in there. So,
and there are two in the E as well. It's just you can't see them unless you make a point of seeing them.
Yeah, actually, one of the lighting kits for those, it's actually called the lava effect. So it looks like flowing lava. That's the light they use for the Sovereign class nacelles. So it's kind of neat that way.
Yeah, it's a very fun effect. And then Voyager, same thing. It has Bussard's similar to the D, but with the two lights.
And the only one that's not here that's kind of the outlier is the refit, which just has like the vents in the front that aren't lit red. I know, it's fine. It's the same kind of thing. They scoop it in the same way. It's just not this. It's the outlier because they aren't red, you know. So
and you wouldn't be able to point them on a map. You just assume the front thing.
Yeah,
you assume, right? But that is a little history lesson, of course. Now here is a look at what we've seen previously. And the reason there's 3 shots of the Enterprise in Stranger Worlds when they stole the Enterprise is because it does kind of change the look a little bit depending on perspective, so I got that. And on the right, you've got the top is the Smithsonian recreation version of the Bussard effect. Pinch of salt. The bottom one is TOS remastered, and the bottom is Intermirror Darkly. So there are 3 entirely different Bussard designs, and then Stranger Worlds as well. I just thought as well, you can't really point at one being the one. So I thought I'd put all 3.
And I always wondered how they worked specifically. Yes, I knew they sucked in hydrogen, at least. I didn't know they sucked in direct deuterium, but it is quite an interesting idea because, you know, it sucks in like the most abundant thing in the universe, essentially. So they can get it pretty much anywhere and kind of refuel on the go, which is a fantastic idea, honestly. Take the raw materials and just process them down to the deuterium they need for fuel. So, but to actually, you know, in this one get some kind of functionality, like, yes, you're in a huge pocket of deuterium. So like, boom, open those up and just scoop it in. You just got to assume that they're not always, you know, or they always are kind of drawing in small particles if they need it.
Well, it's a multi-purpose. They're not deuterium collectors. They're just collectors, right? It's anything that could be useful for any reason. There's so many elements that exist in space, or even, you know, if an asteroid that has matter, they could vaporize parts of the asteroid, leaving debris, pull that in. So, you know, just useful tools to have, especially if they, you know, especially the NX and Connie, designed for insanely long-range, long-duration missions relative to how much fuel they would have, etc. And, you know, how many of the captains want to go full warp? Well, not as much as you think. You know, they always say warp 6. Like, God, you can go up 9.2 or 7 or 8. So I guess try and be fuel efficient.
And the interesting thing with the TOS one here is you do see them turning at different speeds at different times. Sometimes they're much faster, other times it's quite slow, and that's cool. It just shows like perhaps that when they're turning faster, they're just sucking in more because there's more available. But anyway, yeah, it's a very variable speed thing with the TOS one.
And of course, the original, it was just literally blades that were spinning like a turbine and Christmas lights on the inside that would flash to intervals. And so to recreate that in CG has been kind of fun because, of course, that's by its very nature, it's a transparent, translucent, multi-layered thing because the lights are behind the blades, so they've got to be obscured, and it's a whole thing. I think Intimate Darkly looked phenomenal. It kind of does change the vibe a bit, take more of a unified kind of piece. The other ones are more bladey. I like the Intimate Darkly more, I think, with a just sort of slightly more tech approach. And the new ones, of course, Stranger Worlds, are very blades. I mean, they've gone super classic. Hardcore red, but I mean, every other Bussard is red, so I'm not gonna say too much about that.
And I always got the sense too, like growing up, before I knew anything about the tech really, that the flashing of the multicolored lights in the TOS one just seemed like reactions happening, like as particles were drawn in, reactions were happening to like, so even the colors weren't always the same. They kind of, sometimes you saw more green, sometimes it was just more red or orange. So it's interesting visual for sure.
I guess if I was having to think about it, I would think they're all different filters working. Would be maybe, different, all those represent different elements that it's looking for and working. They do like their M5. Look, yeah. Lights are blinking, therefore action.
Things are happening.
Things are happening. But Stuart, the next shot, of course, is this shot in the nebula. This is sort of mid, because this is the shot that we have in the show, and clearly doesn't show the Bussards working at a normal way, so I had to find some highlighting. But let's look at the close-ups, because this was a fun, distinct move. The blades kind of shifted in on themselves to create space, turbined quicker, and then stuff pulled in. It was very tangible, real, and effective.
And I love seeing those kind of like flaps or holding pieces like move out to actually like, that was a neat feature to see, because even the TOS Enterprise has those like 3 on the bottom of the nacelle, and then the vents behind that. So it's something you think that maybe the actual TOS one could also do. You just never saw it. I don't know if those 3 vents might pop out a little bit or whatever, but it was so cool to see some functionality. I loved seeing this scene. And yeah, the blades, they do change their thickness and they kind of speed up, and yeah.
It's such a quick moment, right? And I watched it once so far. I didn't notice the side bits.
Yeah, they just pop open. So yeah, there's it's really cool to see the articulation of that.
So they're meant to be vents as well, as in they're like pulling in. I see. Oh, okay.
It's almost like because they're in the soup, as it were, they open those up to just get fueled faster. You don't normally need them out, right? But that was really neat to see. The one thing I had a little bit of an issue with, before they said to start scooping in deuterium, the graphic behind Pike shows deuterium going in already. I don't know if you noticed that on the bridge, but there's like a graphic of like stuff going into the nacelles. And even after they stop doing it at the end of the episode, the graphic's still there, and you see like particles being drawn in. It's a neat visual. So
I'd assume the point of the Bussard is to do it passively.
Well, yes, absolutely.
This is just doing a warp 10, so I assume that's absolutely fine. Otherwise, you never think that the Voyager, they don't have to necessarily turn it on to work. It's just working.
Yeah.
And then special maneuver. Interesting.
And we have seen this kind of thing before. The only other real time we've seen them scoop anything in is Insurrection. We have seen the Crimson force field eject particles in TNG with the Packlids. They actually spew out elements from the Bussards. So I never really got the sense or believed that it was like a material that could easily like have things pass through it. It almost feels like a force field in a way, just because of that ability. It's not like a physical thing. It always felt weird to me, but there's probably some kind of really cool explanation that I just don't know. So
because they don't open, like nothing. This does, but has blades. I'll give it that, right? I'll give that. But the other ones don't open. They just activate, right? So it must be properties that allow things to come through. And clearly, very visceral scene insurrection. I mean, that's the entire get out of space jail, space fight card. Although, looking at this, I almost feel like I can see the line they've just cut the effect on for the Bussard. So there's just a matte line. It's very, looks very.
That was a new visual effects company for that one.
It was. It really, really was. And yeah, TNG. This isn't the Samaritan. This is a different episode where I think they are pulling stuff in, but they didn't necessarily have the budget or time to do too many Bussard things. Because you must have a vent as well. I mean, there must be a way of, just ejecting everything instantly, pretty much.
Well, we always hear vent the plasma. I mean, you would assume that's part of the procedure, right?
Because because it would make more sense to vent plasma from the Bussards and the warp coils, because the coils are specifically in a because remember the matter's going into the warp core as the matter to the antimatter. The deuterium shouldn't get into the warp coils because it goes down the tank and then makes energy, and the energy goes up. So it shouldn't launch from the coils. It should launch from the Bussards, really, because that's
Yeah, I think the main idea is it scoops in a whole bunch of different elements, sorts it essentially, refines the deuterium, puts it in the deuterium tank, moves the other stuff, the hydrogen and stuff, to like the replicators or whatever it needs it. So it's a very elaborate process, but very interesting at the same time.
Because I've never actually thought about it, because why would you? But I think in section they do fire it from the warp coils, and they shouldn't be able to. But it would look weird to have launched it back out of the Bussards, because they would have to go around the nacelles. That's a harder effect to do, I think.
Well, there must be like a reason for the chiller grills and stuff, like for the warp.
Well, heat displacement from the coils.
Well, yeah, but also
until the EMs
in emergency ejection as well. It's like you would think. That's what I've always assumed.
But it's like venting petrol through another part of the engine that's not designed for it. I guess it's then designed for it, but you'd think that would be dangerous. But again, it's an emergency. Like, you'd have to clean the warp coils from deuterium. That'd take a long time, I'm guessing, especially with other materials as well. Gunk. And obviously the warp coils are quite important to stay clean and fresh and, creating a subspace bubble. Don't gunk them up with deuterium, etc.
I didn't have a chance to look at the technical manuals and stuff before we did this episode, but I know there's a whole explanation on how these work, especially in the TNG one. So, yeah, I mean, it's all there. So if anybody, knows anything and wants to comment down below, please do so. Are you just
trying to call out Rick Sternbach here? Rick, if you're watching! That's what
Rick helps me a lot, actually. I have questions for him a lot, and he's always very, good with answering. So yeah, as I said, guys, comment down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to activate that bell notification icon to all, so you don't miss any content. We love doing this kind of stuff. We should do a complete scripted and full episode on how the engines work, how the nacelles work, and the warp coils. I think we might do that at some point. So stay tuned for that, and you don't want to miss it. So like I said, hit the notification bell icon. And you have to be on our channel page to click that button. So while you're there, click the join button and look at the perk levels. Cool things for cool support makes a big difference. Let's do what we do and keep doing it into the years and seasons of the Trek shows to come. Or Patreon. It is the same thing, but on a different website. Go check it out. Or one-time donations via Super Chat on any live. Super thanks on any video, like any video. Big, broad spectrum of videos. Or PayPal, trekyards@hotmail.com. Thank you in advance. And we'll see you next time. Well, you'll see us next time because we're here in the past. You'll see us next time. That's right. And until then, or when you join us for a live, he is Commander Calkins. Foley. See you guys later. Bye, guys.